Hello, chat room. I'm live and alive after a grueling shift in the mines. I say grueling, it was not that bad. It was like just completely boring. Oh, yeah. What's going on, y'all? Hello, hello. I just snoozed the Twitch ad So I'll run it in a second. I'll let y'all get in first, say hi. Yeah. How y'all doing? Dennis, what's up, man? Josh, what's up? If y'all want me to be on time for the next stream, my usual stream time is supposed to be about 3 hours earlier. Solid Lord, hello. XT3net, hello. Yeah, usual stream time 3 hours earlier. That's kind of the plan. But obviously that doesn't happen because I'm a wage cuck. So if you want to change that, go to... Fuck. Go to... I can't. Yeah, go to ko-fi.com/Zedbra. Support me there or sub to me on Twitch. I think actually we're 32 subscribers on Twitch. I think we're 6 YouTube members. We're 6 Ko-fi members. So that's actually 44 shareholders. Let's see what that works. Nice. So that's, I made a PowerPoint. I came home, literally made a PowerPoint, and then went live. That was the plan. That's what I did. And that is the plan. That's what we're doing tonight. Heck yeah, man. I'm wondering, do I have any updates? I played like a tiny bit more Star Fox Zero. Obviously, after the last stream, I was very unsatisfied with how it went. Ecker, hello. And I still don't understand why, from my couch, it played fine. Heimblood, what's up? From my couch, the distance is not that different, and I still had a much better connection with the gamepad. I'm not sure what was going on there. However, I will say on the Wii U, the slowdown kind of bothers me. And there is, I mean, the gamepad is laggy. You know, it is much laggier than like the TV display. Depends on your screen, of course, but I have a very fast TV, so. And I did get it running on emulator. On the Mac, and it runs really good actually. So I'm kind of tempted to do that. Oh, Josh, that's awesome. I'm actually really happy with it still. I thought that came out really well. Slotty Cloud, what's up? We're not talking about Tekken 8 balance now. Ozzy, what's going on, man? Any other news? Let me think. So... tomorrow is a holiday in Germany. So I'm visiting my parents. So that's what's happening there. Big ups for holidays. I'm gonna do some video editing, grunt work, paid work. Y'all know what it is. Probably before I leave tomorrow. And then maybe Friday I'm gonna try to actually work on my shit. I mean, today when I was at my fucking freelance TV job, by the way, on Twitch, there's gonna be an ad in like 30 seconds if you don't want to see ads. Consider subscribing to my Twitch channel. It's also a great way to support me, and also you get bonus content on via the Discord. There's an extra channel for Twitch subs called Habibi Content and Habibi Chat. So check that out. But yeah, we're about to see an ad. But like, it's not, what I'm about to say is not that important. Also, you can watch on YouTube if you want to watch ad-free, I guess. So that's an option. But yeah. What the fuck was I saying? At my regular freelance TV job, which is the one proper stable job that I have, and even then it's not very stable. It's not very reliable. It's not a reliable source of income. When I was there, I was mostly just like writing job applications for other shit. Yeah. So, God, we're still in hell. We're still very much in hell. It's very bad. Yo, what's up? What's going on, man? I appreciate that you would throw away your education to watch me instead. I think that's a great thing. I think you're making all the correct decisions in life. Okay, while the Twitch ad is running, I'm gonna say something kind of gross. I have like a pimple inside my nostril. Like inside this nostril here. And it's like it's underneath the skin and you don't see it at all. Well, you can tell my nose is like kind of swollen and weird looking, but like you kind of have to know. The main thing is it's just really painful. So if I'm making weird faces, that's gonna be the reason. Wolfston, what's up, man? I'm doing okay. I'm a little, you know what it is. I've been stressed out since graduation, very much. Just wishing for stable employment. But you know what? It's fine. Yeah. It just doesn't feel, dude. The thing is, it's so annoying that I can't afford to like turn my brain off. Yeah, I can't afford to just turn my brain off for a second. That's what's really frying me. Freelance life is tough this year for me. Has been pretty slow. Hoping things will pick up soon. Yeah, damn. Like right now I have a stable editing gig, but it's like $500 a month. Yeah, it's not enough to live. And then my freelance TV thing is like so irregular and so sporadic. Wait, do I have shit lined up for June? No. Let me check if I... Oh, no, I can't do all that right now. Okay, you know what, whatever. I'm gonna do it later. Yeah. God, I mean, I graduated like mid-March. It's been like 2 months. That's relatively normal when I'm like looking at my peers. But like, I mean, I'm starting to look at like retail and shit, yeah. So I don't know. I feel like finding something that actually fits my fucking profile and fits my education, and that's a full-time position, and that will actually, I would be okay with just grinding full-time. Like my cost of living is pretty low. If I could just grind full-time for like a year or two, that would be so sick for me. And then make content like at my current pace kind of still. And then see if that, like, if I have just enough savings at some point I could just quit probably and like make this work, right? And also game dev. I mean, I've been thinking, I mentioned this during the Star Fox stream. I was at, I got to speak at this university event, sort of on the other side of the country. And it was pretty cool. And I was like, talking a lot about this idea of like, I got to chat a lot about the idea of like government funding. I got to talk to a lot of people who received government funding for their game projects. And that's something that's been more present in my mind lately now as well, where I'm like, okay, you know what, maybe Because in my region, you have to understand in East Germany is where I did this little presentation, where I did this little university lecture. And East Germany, obviously, if you know your history, you know it's a very, very frayed region, very tarnished region, kind of, in a lot of ways. And it's now evolved into a situation where, okay, to kickstart business, they're like very generous with government funding, especially in the games industry. Like they will, as far as I understand, in Eastern Germany and like that sort of tri-state region, kind of, if you write a game design concept and your company or your place of work is based in Eastern Germany, you get like 30K instantly. You have like a 50% chance of getting accepted for government funding. 30K for just a game design document. It is nuts. I'm not moving to Eastern Germany. I'm not doing that. Absolutely fucking not. However, in West Germany, where I live, the situation's still pretty good, you know? It's still pretty... They're still relatively generous from what I understand. So I've been thinking more... I was thinking about, like, this current game concept that was kicking around for my master's thesis. I should probably still finish it just to prove, oh, okay, I can release a video game, like, properly. So true. Like, I feel like I should still do that, but at the same time, that type of thing, I know I won't get funding for that, right? However, I am cooking up an idea where I'm like, okay, I'm being true to myself, but also it's like a real game that's like a little more mass compatible. It's like the game I was previously working on, or that I have been working on, was like the single screen score focused arcade game, right? And now I'm trying to think, okay, what is like a campaign kind of game that I could make, right? A short single player campaign, like 30-40 minutes, right? I'm still a little scared of that idea. Like I don't know if I could do it solo. However, I have an idea that I think is like pretty novel actually, and that I kind of want to do. That seems very cool and appealing. I'm not gonna say what it is yet, but I feel like, I mean, step one will be get some stability, right? Get some stability, like be able to pay my rent. That would be great, and like pay my debt off and all that shit. And then step two would be make a prototype for this game. And then step three will be try to get government funding. And if I could get the funding, I could just live off that, right? And then just make the fucking game. I'll say, if I make this game that I'm thinking in my head, y'all will fucking love it. Like, I'm telling you right now, y'all will love it. It's really sick. The idea is sick. The idea is sick. So, yeah, we'll see if we get there. I did share in the Discord my current fucking game design concept. You know what? I'll just show it to y'all right now if you haven't seen it yet. Wait, I did share it in the Zia Discord. Ziabra.com. If you're not in the Discord yet, join the Discord. It's great. It's awesome. Oh, hell yeah, dude. That's a great question. I don't know exactly. You do have to have, I mean, over here in West Germany, you need some like starting capital going in. And it's still, they're a little more strict with it. Yeah, Gumpong is the name of the project name, kind of. I mean, friend of mine was like, yeah, you should just do it as the final name. It like explains the mechanic really well. Okay, this is the game. Everything you're seeing here is my own code, my own game design. Obviously, the sprites are like called together from like other games. But the idea is like 2D, twin stick, platforming controls, shooter, single screen arena. The recoil moves your character. I wonder if, yeah, I really like how the shotgun feels. I think I did a good job with that. I don't know if I show the hover here, actually. Yeah, I don't think I do. And one of the central mechanics of the game is that the score that you receive points with every hit that you land. And the amount of points that you get scales or deteriorates with travel time of the bullet, right? The longer the bullet takes to reach the enemy, the fewer points we'll get. That was kind of the central idea. And like the central sort of dilemma of the game is like, oh, like the shots, they push you away. So it inherently will create situations where you can't like get into point blank distance. That's kind of the idea. And like the recoil is both an opportunity and like a hindrance at the same time. That's kind of the central idea of the game. And I polished the controls pretty well. I was pretty happy with it. There's like a couple issues still, but I think the main issue is just like, to be honest, if I locked the fuck in, I feel like I could finish this, yeah. If I locked the fuck in, I could finish this for sure. I think it's just game design wise, what I still would have to solve is like, how do I make the game not fucking repetitive as shit? Because like, obviously here, I think the main issue right now is the shotgun is way too powerful. Because the way I balance it is like, okay, well, it kills enemies really quickly, but like there's an opportunity cost in the sense that obviously you receive much fewer points. The shotgun has like, you get like fixed 50 points with every shot, I think, which is very little in the grand scheme of things. The problem is that you can just like nuke the flyers over here. They're supposed to just bother you while you're focusing on the big guys, the stationary guys. The problem is like you can just nuke them with the shotgun and then you're fucking done. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know exactly how to solve it. I guess I could just nerf the shotgun damage, like, significantly. Well, the idea is you use the shotgun mostly for movements and for, like, as a panic button, right? And then the rifle is your main tool to, like, actually score, right? Is your main scoring tool. And I'm not sure exactly how to balance the shotgun, to be honest with you. Because, like, if it kills shit, well, maybe it shouldn't have such a wide hitbox. Or such a long hitbox. Maybe that's the issue. I was going with, like, Doom logic, where, like, you can kill shit from, like, the other end of the arena if you, like, aim right. I really like that about Doom. But I feel like maybe for this game, it's just not the right fit. Maybe that's the biggest issue. I feel like maybe I can keep the damage, or like, mostly keep the damage. And, just not make it a range weapon. Yeah, maybe that's the issue. Let me... me see. Where? There you go. Uh-huh. Okay. Wait. How do I quit the game? Fuck. I don't remember how to quit the game. I don't know how to reload the game. Oh, L. The L button. Okay. There you go. Okay. So the game, it makes much more sense with, like, twin stick, but I'm too lazy to plug in the controller. But you can see I tuned this shit really fucking well. This feels fucking sick. Look at this shit. Look how cool this feels. Like, you can just see it feels good, right? The only issue with controls right now is that, so gravity kicks in as soon as you let go of the jump button. Like, I programmed that in a very simple way. The problem is that if I jump and then, like, the gravity is really kneecapping the shotgun, and, like, it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't really make sense, you know? It doesn't, because if well, maybe it's fine, I don't know. But yeah, you can see the angle that I shoot at determines the speed. And then I can resist the recoil. Or I can support the recoil by moving in the same direction. Oh, so you only, if you leave the ground with the shotgun and then you could jump. That's like an idea. I don't think it's necessary though. I think the main issue right now is, like, getting the gravity to feel, like, consistent, because it doesn't really make sense that, like, that I'm only getting this, like, tiny hop, even though I'm, like, super close to the ground, you know? I think what I could do is I could simply, well, I don't, I don't know, this is surprisingly hard to fix. So the other thing is, obviously, I can hover in the air. I think another doubt I had about the game.
Cost?
Oh, Salvo, thank you for the sub, man.
Buy the entire Earth and be king.
Thank you for the sub, dude. Welcome to the fold. Welcome to the board. Welcome to the board of shareholders. Yeah, the gravity thing is a surprisingly hard issue to fix. And then the main thing I have, like, serious doubts about right now is just the size of the level. Because I'm thinking, how do I overwhelm the player without making it feel like a total fucking mess, you know? That's my main thing. And that's why I'm, like, starting to think, you know what, maybe I should, like... I mean, this was my whole premise for this game was, like, oh... how do I make, like, a super, like, competitive single-player game? Like, single-player scoring game. That's, like, very fair, very, like, completely deterministic, but still very nuanced. And that's where I came up with the idea of, like, oh, okay, the points scale with distance, and that creates, like, a lot of nuance, and then you have the recoil mechanic that, like, is fighting it constantly. Oops, oh god, oh god. I'm just fucking around a little bit. This is much harder to play with a mouse. Okay, you get the idea. Yeah. That's kind of pong, but like, maybe I'll put it on ice for now and like focus on my other idea. We'll see. Okay, y'all. I think we're at a good amount of viewers. I guess we can get into the main topic of today, which is game balance, of course. Exactly. Yeah, so basically, you shoot a bullet. It has a value of like 100, right? The value is added to your score as soon as it collides with an enemy, right? However, the value deteriorates as the bullet travels forward, with travel time, right? So the longer it travels, the lower the value of this bullet will be. And it's like, I'm doing like a super simple calculation. It's like literally, I think I literally just divided by the travel time or something. Yeah. And then times delta or some shit. It's super simple. Okay. Should I record this for YouTube, like, dedicatedly? Maybe I should. Maybe I will. Okay, let's do it. Hello, YouTube. Say hello, YouTube, in chat. This will be a little debate. I don't know how we're gonna do this. I don't know if anyone's up to debate today. If you want to debate, I guess I'm gonna open the VC. Let's see. So if you want to debate me on this, you can join the waiting room here. You can join the waiting room here if you think I'm stupid, if you want to disagree with me. But yeah, let's get into the topic. How much should we care about balance? Obviously, our Discord is very, let's say lasered in on this idea of balance and like bounded design. What is bounded design? What is sandboxy design? This is something my bubble has been very preoccupied with. Obviously, there's this idea of the arcade purists. Raidenade, what's up? And I got some thoughts, and I asked y'all for your thoughts. Let me pull up Discord again. So, we got a lot of fucking good questions, and I will go through these in a second, but first I want to run through my points a little bit to set the stage, right? So, the main focus of this discussion, and I should say I made this PowerPoint like really quickly after I got off work before the stream. So I just very lazily wrote down my points. I'm just gonna read off it a little bit. So forgive me for that. When I do lectures in real life, when I do presentations in real life, I try to do minimal text, because it's bad. But yeah, when we talk about balance, the thing we mean, generally speaking, is a very sort of broken down way to say exploits and cheese strats that undermine depth of a game, undermine sort of the interesting bits and bobs of a game, right? As a result of less bounded design. So I think that's something that Boghawk has talked a lot about, where, okay, if... Actually, I think I just talked about it on the next slide. Okay. Here we go. The theory. Devs want to have their cake and eat it too. Games are trending toward more sandboxy, you control the buttons you press style design. I forgot oh my god. I forgot to put the fucking quotation marks there. leaving way too much room for holes, right? I think that is something that Balkar has actually literally said. He said, like, yeah, people don't see the value in sort of tight, bounded, constrained design anymore, and allow their games to have all these holes and cracks that are very exploitable. And that's just annoying, right? So I've shown a couple examples where you could argue, oh, the Tranquilizer and MGS5 and like all the fucking extra weapons, and you have stuff like the Kilgore glitch and Bayonetta, which you could argue, okay, it's a thing that slipped through the cracks because it's so open-ended and loosey-goosey with kind of how the weapons work and the types of weapons you have. Obviously, Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, they're just like total clown fiestas. Now, the thing that should be acknowledged, I think, in this discussion is that even when the design is not even like, I think the core conflict that you're tempted to kind of point out is like, well, the whole point of Tears of the Kingdom is that it is open-ended and it is super freeform and loosey-goosey and like it has all these endless possibilities and it's about creativity, and that's the whole point, right? And trying to make it balanced would go against the point, like very explicitly and very literally and very directly. I want to say there are a lot of games where you could fix the exploits and it wouldn't really compromise the surrounding design, right? The free, unbounded nature of the design, very much. It would just be a net positive. Let me show you what I mean. This is a perfect example of that, actually. This is Crazy Taxi. This is a run by, I think it's Dandadan5. Okay, for some reason you can't hear the game. I'm not sure why that's the case. Wait. So. Actually, it's not that important. You don't need to hear the game because, like, I'm gonna get claimed anyway if we play the Offspring. So whatever. Okay. Let me. So Crazy Taxi has this technique called the infinite drift. Basically, the way it works is that when you have a customer in your passenger seat, you just saw a little drift there, right? Oh my god, why did it do that? When you drift, you get what is called a tip, right? The tip is added to the overall fare that the customer will dispense when you deliver them to the destination, right? So, for the duration of the drift, I want to say like, dude, I calculated it literally for my master's thesis, but I think it was like 7 frames, something like that. You will get a little tip, and that amount of tip that you get actually increases every time by like $1, right? And you will see a very aggressive version of that later. But you're seeing the tips like you get them for sort of close calls as well. Now, there's this thing in the game called the backwards drift. If you simply invert the inputs that are required for the drift usually, the car will go sort of in a backwards donut, right? It doesn't really feel or look like a drift, but the game logic considers it a drift. Oh my god. Why? Dude, this is so stupid. Okay. Here we go. So. See, that's how the drift usually works, right? Now, watch what he does. He was already going backwards, and then as he was going backwards, he's in reverse gear. He shifts up and then shifts back into reverse. And the game, you see here, it considers it a drift. And because of the specific way the mechanics are combining, you can just do this forever. You can stay in this drift state forever, right? Now, that by itself is not actually that crazy, right? Because guess what? The customer, they have their... So you have the game time, but then you have the customer timer, right? The customer will leave the car as soon as their timer runs out, which will end the drift and will end you getting any tips. And like, also if they leave the car, before you're actually at the destination, guess what? You're not getting any money, right? So this doesn't seem so bad, right? Except there's a very weird behavior in the game where if you run out of customer time while already in the parking zone, guess what happens? The customer just stays in. And I don't even know if there's a ceiling on the amount of tips you can get with every combo. So yeah, it just keeps going up, right? It's insane. And like with a single infinite drift is already enough to get like the highest rank in the game, like easily, which is 20k, right? 20k is like you get the crazy rank. And I think it's fair to say that this like completely breaks the integrity of the game. This is not hard to do, really. And it's also, to go back to my previous point, actually I want to know, why does he... I guess for the strategy, I kind of want to know, okay, what is the logic of like only milking the customer for like this specific amount of time? Like, when do you know that you've milked them enough? Would be my question, kind of. Wait, can you get... Let's see. Okay, he keeps going after 300. Oh my god, this is insane. This is crazy. See, like, he's already tripled the score requirement for the highest rank, right? All that said, right? To go back to my previous point, this is super easily fixable. And it wouldn't really break the game. I think tweaking sort of what the game considers a drift, not a good idea. I wouldn't really mess with that. That could be really damaging to the game. However, the really simple fix would be just make the customer leave the car. Like, regardless of whether they're in the parking zone or not. And, like, I think you could just tweak it where, okay, I mean, the best fix would be, okay, if the customer runs out of time, you stop the vehicle... if the customer timer runs out and you're in the parking zone, in the destination zone, stop the taxi and play the customer exiting animation and like dispense the fare, right? That would be the best fix. If you don't want to do that, if you don't want to stop the taxi, you could still just make the customer hop out, because obviously that is a behavior that's already in the game. And then just add the flag like, okay, because they're in the parking zone, you dispense the fare, right? You give the player the money. I think that's a totally fair solution. Because I think that would actually be kind of interesting, right? You would have to sort of figure out, okay, is it worth setting up and going for the infinite drift when I have like 10 seconds left on the customer clock? Is that worth it? Should I do it? And like, you would really actively seek out every opportunity to do it, and it might actually raise the game step, you know? I think this is a really serious exploit, and it's something that it's frustrating because it could have been easily fixed. And when you play the game now on Xbox Live, that's like one of the versions that's actually still actively played. There's a weekly leaderboard on the Xbox 360 version. And people still actively play it. And it's sort of annoying because, like, the leaderboard is very poorly constructed. Like, you don't really know what difficulty people played on. You don't know what exploits they used. Like, the game doesn't really acknowledge that at all. It's very indifferent toward it. And I feel like it's really hard to take that type of competition seriously, right? The only way to really compete in this game is like, okay, you upload your run to YouTube and everyone can see what you did, right? And then you have maybe the honor system of like, okay, I played in this difficulty and I didn't use the exploits and blah, blah. That's funny. Well, as it is right now, you could still it still is that way, right? It's still optimal to do the infinite drift every time, right? And rather than like entirely remove it and like damage the game in the process, like damage anything about like the physics or the way the scoring kind of works, I think I would rather just not make it infinite, you know? Just make that one simple tweak and then let the game just rock. I think that's fine, right? That would be my approach. So I think this is really important to acknowledge. I do think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit shit that we're just kind of accepting and that we shouldn't have to accept. There is a way to unify the schools of design a little more, right? So, my first claim, and I realize I formatted the text very poorly, but like, hang on, I can just... Actually, wait, can I... Yeah, whatever. Okay. Games can be so unbounded that it's hard to take them seriously on a fundamental level. Especially if grindable progression systems are central to the game, no amount of controlling the buttons you press will unearth a serious underlying core. That is something I really truly believe and that I will stand by. I think, I see a lot of discussion with shit like Elden Ring, like, oh my god, I had to play like a level 1 run, no co-op, no the specific item, no summons, no magic, whatever, blah, to have like the most satisfying experience. And I'm like, the progression system of a game like Elden Ring is so central to that game already. It's so baked into the design. It's such a, like, inextricable part of the game. For me, it's very hard to take it seriously, right? It's just so open-ended to the point that, like, I don't know what, like, the most satisfying experience is, and I will constantly have to, like, check the buttons I'm pressing, right? On such a foundational, fundamental level. Like, finding the honorable way to play Elden Ring is just so wishy-washy and so unclear. Because there's just way too much stuff. It's way too unbounded. And I had a similar, like, not gonna lie, even something like Pragmata, which has kind of a hard ceiling with how high the progression system goes. It is still a grindable progression system where every single thing makes the game actively easier, right? Every single thing you unlock makes the game actively easier. And there's even shit like auto-hacking, which is like directly undermining mechanics in the game, right? Which I didn't use ever and it didn't feel necessary, but then it raises the question of like, okay, when you get to like the post-game bosses, which I haven't yet, is it maybe necessary? Is it something you should need? Because like, so many of the mechanics of Pragmata already are based around making the game simpler, making the situation a little less complex, right? Like, oh, stun this enemy, or make the hacking grid smaller, or give yourself more time here, right? So much of the gameplay is already based around that. So are the progression systems really a violation of that? It's like, it's so wishy-washy and annoying, and I do hate that. And I think that's a super fair criticism, right? So, my second claim. There exists a sweet spot of game that has generally tight focus, where, as stated, some stuff just slips through the cracks. This is sort of arbitrary and hard to identify, but you kind of know when you see it. And that, I think I would slot something like Crazy Taxi and something like Bayonetta in there, right? Like, clearly, I think Bayonetta is interesting in this case, because, like, it is a game that has it has a deluge of, mechanics and systems that you can, like, engage with. It has, like, healing items, accessories, all that shit, blah, and they actually, clearly, they care about the integrity of the game. Because you can see, okay, the items will reduce your score, some accessories will ban you from getting pure platinum, right? Clearly that's something they thought about, and then still, some stuff is, like, still really fucking powerful, right? To be honest, I kind of want to know, if you're not using the Kilgore glitch, how cheesy can you make the pure platinum? If you're not using Kilgore glitch, is it still possible to, like, cheese the pure platinum on, like, Infinite Climax difficulty? I want to say people are really exaggerating how fucking busted and exploitable the game is in that way. But then you could argue, again, something like the Kilgore glitch undermines the game pretty strongly, right? But it's like, we're moving... It's clearly not this, right? Where we have to ignore foundational, like, systems of the game, right? Clearly, we're looking at super fucking edge cases in games like Crazy Taxi and Bayonetta, and they don't have, like, infinite ceilings of shit making the game easier, right? That's not what we're dealing with. We just have a couple select things that are just damaging the game a little bit, like, in isolation. And again, it's a little arbitrary. It's a little weird to identify, but I feel like you kind of know what I'm talking about, you know? So my third claim, based on that, going off of that, trying to enjoy games while having to consciously ignore exploitable cracks is annoying. However, as a social competitive activity, this stuff is very rarely what actually determines a game's longevity. So, obviously this is something I've brought up a lot, right? I actually brought this up to Boghawk, this argument that, like, okay, how do we feel with this in the context of a game like Third Strike, which is clearly like a not super balanced game, right? Like, clearly Chun, Yun, Ken are like the best characters in Third Strike. And Boghawk was like telling me, and I mean, this is sort of a convincing argument. He was saying, like, well, even if everybody just played Ken, for example, it would still be an interesting game. You know, it would still be a very deep game. That is correct. However, I feel like that is also too simplistic, you know? Because, like, it's not like all the other... Like, in practice, all the other shit is still used, you know? Because it is a very living, breathing game. I feel like this idea that, like, balance is the main thing to aim for doesn't actually reflect reality, right? And obviously, I mean, it doesn't reflect reality even in the simple sense of, like, well, sandboxing games are very popular, right? But even if we're looking at, like, okay, what are sort of the milestones of the medium? What are, like, games that are really acclaimed, have really hardcore communities? I feel like the correlation between balance and, like, that niche critical acclaim is actually not that strong, you know? And, like, even with Crazy Taxi, you will see, oh, people will build a community around playing the game, like, properly, you know? Where this is, you know, same user that we just saw, except they're specifying, yeah, we're not doing the infinite drift, right? So immediately it's a much more honorable run. I was too lazy to pull up the quote, but this is a book I had to read from a master's thesis as well. It's called Rules of Play. I had a lot of issues with this book, but it is very thought-provoking, at least. There's a lot of interesting ideas in it that are easy to kind of riff off. And they do talk about, like, yeah, honor systems and etiquette have always been a part of games. Always been a fundamental part of games. Do serious players play fighting games for their balance or for their possibility space, which also includes the bullshit? I don't think it's that simple. You can't really pin it down to one thing, right? I mean, like, if I don't think it's purely, yeah, the fighting games with the craziest combos are the most popular, you know, with the most combo creativity, all that shit. I don't think it's necessarily that. I think it's ironically, there has to be a balance of different elements that, like, come together and make the game very enjoyable, right? I think what I'm saying is, like, balance is not the one thing, you know, in practice. Like the literal, like, game mechanical balance. So, my final claim: games like Crazy Taxi have more good lessons than bad lessons to take in. Even if you think that exploits destroy Crazy Taxi's competitive integrity, are you really doing yourself a favor by dismissing the entire thing? That's my main argument that I wanna leave you off with. I don't know if I have anything to like expand that with, but like, I mean, Crazy Taxi, it is one of the most inspirational games for me. There's like so many things about it that like I want to put into my game design and that I find like very, very fucking enjoyable to play as well. I mean, I talked about this, right? Trying to enjoy games while having to consciously ignore blah, 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 all that shit. I can see how somebody would play Crazy Taxi and be like, like, I want to enjoy it, but like, I have to use the infinite drift, you know? But I can kind of see the logic of that. Surely I've been there a couple times with games. But ultimately, like, I mean, a lot of what we're talking about is not even just enjoying games. A lot of what we're talking about is like critically evaluating them. And are we really saying there isn't like insanely impressive, interesting shit about a game like Crazy Taxi? Are we really saying that? That's my argument. Every game is bad in many, many ways and good in a few. So true. Okay, I think that was my presentation. That was my little PowerPoint. Thank you. Virtua Fighter 5 is probably the best fighting game ever made, but you know damn well that game will never get any serious attention. Huh. I mean, it has a pretty hardcore community around it, yeah. VF6 will be open world and have meter. Games need referees. Well, that's the thing. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, people built communities around their games. You know, they. I mean, in Melee, people were talking about like, yeah, let's introduce a shot clock, like to counteract Jigglypuff stalling and shit like that. You know, like people will figure a thing out if they love the game enough. DeFritos, what's up? Yeah, you missed the whole presentation. I thought it was really good, but like I'm gonna go into y'all's questions now from the Discord thread. So you're not too late. And I guess y'all can check out the VOD later. I think a game like Tekken 8 is a good example of poor balance on PvP fighting game. People hate its design compared to. Yeah, again, like I think there is a tipping point, right? There's a tipping point where, but like at the same time, I don't know if it's just balance in Tekken 8's case, right? It's not like, oh, this one character is just really powerful and like is deleting the depth of the game. It's just that the game itself is not well considered anymore, you know? It's just a nightmare of 50-50s and guesses and like whatever, you know? That's kind of what I'm hearing. I don't know how to feel in my lighting situation. Like the back is just so dark. Siri, set the lights to... Siri, make the color of the light white. Is that better? I don't know. Let's see. That's awesome. Okay, let's get into the questions. What the hell? Oh yeah, Hot Pocket, what's up, man? I think that's see, that is very interesting, yeah. See, with Pragmata, I mostly focus on the progression slop aspect of it. I guess the question is like, see, I think what you're speaking to is really resonating with me, because like you're saying it can be easily excised, right? The question then is like, okay, should the game in its current form not exist? Would that be better? Would it be better if they like made it so different as to be unrecognizable in the pursuit of more balance. I don't know if I'm super comfortable with that, yeah. And I feel like that's what some of the arcade purists kind of are saying, right? So, let's go into the points from the Discord. There seems to be a lot of overlap between difficulty and balance. For example, if the player finds something to be trivially easy in a game, when is this a case of imbalance and when isn't it? Is a game more balanced when set balance is created with the consideration of a player with Evo level mastery? And that last point is something I've thought about. Cause like, this is something I've talked to Blackhawk about as well, and I talked about that in my Parry video, where the reason you design your game with the assumption of perfect play is because it will reveal the cracks. Not necessarily because it's realistic, but because it will reveal the cracks. And I think there is some value in that. And I guess what you're speaking to here as well is that like the goal of balance is to provide quote unquote more difficulty and more depth in a way, right? To keep the game more interesting. And it is sort of under the assumption that like that is the most aspirational quality of the game, right? I have a hard time like really coming up with a clear answer, but that is an interesting angle. Many all-time great fighting games from Melee to MVC2 are considered imbalanced as hell, with strategies and characters that dominate the meta completely. Yet these games endured when more balanced sequels or successors don't. How does this reflect on the role of and value of balance? Could these same considerations be applied to single-player games that may also have balance issues? I think I've addressed this like pretty thoroughly. I think the correlation is not completely unimportant, but the correlation is not strong, in my opinion. I think there will be always, again, purists that like will very aggressively argue against these flaws, especially again, like my point earlier was like, well, there's the cop-out argument that like, yeah, Third Strike is interesting, like, or Melee, as you're saying, is interesting still, even if you're just playing Fox, right? Even if everyone's playing Fox, it's still interesting. I feel like that's kind of a cop-out argument, right? It's like, it's ignoring how the game is actually played, you know? And I feel like you really have to ignore games as a social activity to like, to have that perspective, yeah. Most games are mixed appeal where there is trade-offs that's out of depth / common quality, like you're not going to remove surface state. Yeah, exactly, yeah. That's how I felt about Pragmata, right, as well. Given the recent popularity of systems-driven games and open-ended design from games like MGS5, Elden Ring, and the open-air Zeldas, where is the game's embracing of a player's ability to break intended challenges a problem? When is it a sign of lazy design and when is it commendable? That is a great fucking question, and I don't know if I have a clear answer for that either. I think, it's funny, in my bubble, the word defeatist at one point became kind of common. Maybe I do need to tweak the white balance of the camera. The word defeatist became kind of common, where like, okay, we're not even gonna try to make this good. Just, like, with JRPGs is very common, where like, okay, instead of making good combat, they just let you skip all the combat, you know? I feel like defeatist also could be applied to like, games that like, they give you so many tools that are like intrinsically kind of fun to use, and then they don't really care about like the integrity of the experience that results from that. I think something like Mario Odyssey is a great example of that, where I mean, even Mario Odyssey has like its tighter moments where like where it kind of locks in. But a lot of the time it does feel like, okay, long jump, Cappy, dive onto Cappy, extend, blah blah blah, and you can just do that fucking loop forever. And I think they were drinking the Kool-Aid so hard of like, okay, this is cool and fun to do, so we don't care. Like, you're gonna feel sick doing it, so it doesn't matter that the level design doesn't counter it very well, doesn't contest it very well. And I think that is fair to maybe identify as lazy a little bit, but like I'm finding that I think Elden Ring to me feels. I'm not super comfortable saying it's lazy, right? Because obviously the reality is that the developers of Elden Ring worked really fucking hard on the game, right? I'm not super comfortable with that. I think it's just with Nintendo, it's really. I think you can make that argument the strongest. That what I just said, right? That, okay, they're so convinced that the mechanics are just inherently cool and fun. So they kind of throw up their hands a little bit and like, whatever about the rest. But then still they can do cool scenarios here and there. It's not like they're incapable of it. I feel like maybe that makes it more frustrating. But then, I mean, I love Breath of the Wild. I think Tears of the Kingdom is a great game too. I love Bonanza as well. So I don't know. It's really hard. It's really fucking hard. Let me read the comments more. Where I agree with the arcade purists is I sort of do think that a lot of these dynamics are just not thought through, and then the picture it's basically an unforced error. I think that's fair. I think it's fair. I guess it's sort of like, see, it's such dangerous territory to play in, the Fritos, because like whether you find your own solution that you came up with creative or like stupid, and you feel, I think you can come up with one of those solutions and then still feel like you undermine the challenge, and like that is so subjective, probably. Yeah, I think it's really hard, but clearly the Breath of the Wild style works. You know, it's very popular. So arguing from that perspective is like, I don't know. For games whose goals aren't about the challenge to reach the credits, how much should balance even be a consideration? Can a game like Minecraft be imbalanced? I think what this is touching on is like, I don't believe in one consistent framework for games, right? I think the job of a critic is to find the interesting thing about the game, right? And if we're thinking about a game with this perspective of like balance, challenge, depth, right? Depth of challenge. We're doing that to reveal something about the game, right? But then I think what we're speaking to here is like maybe that approach will not actually reveal the interesting thing about every game, right? Maybe there's games where that approach won't reveal what's interesting about it. So that's my take on that. When is balance something the player has to opt into, and when is it something the designer enforces? For example, difficulty selection is often assumed to be enforcement by the designer, despite the fact that the player has to opt into a given difficulty level. On the other hand, in a game whose upgrade tree can be ignored in order to beat it, that choice is seen to be largely in the hands of the player. Why do you think that is? Yeah, see, I mean, there's like... There's a conversation between the player and the game, right? Structuring, like having difficulty modes, distinct difficulty modes, that's a form of structure. That's a form of structuring and like compartmentalizing your game. And it sort of makes sense to understand that as like, okay, the designer is guiding me toward like a different set of experiences. Whereas like with a skill tree, the guidance away from the skill tree, that doesn't feel very natural. You know, it doesn't feel like there's something explicit there that like, that would lead me in that direction. I see what you're kind of saying. It is on a purely systemic sense, it is arbitrary. It is an arbitrary distinction. But I think there's something, I mean, in the sense of how we, like, that's the thing. The purists, they could say, well, if the game has an easy mode, that's already a cop-out, right? Like, why play the hard mode even? You could be really extreme like that, and I think that's, like, you're being a little silly at that point, you know? I think we're reaching, like, a level of obtuseness that is almost, like, inhuman, you know? Yeah. And I don't know if that's a real thing people say anyway. Well, Under the Mayo kind of is like that. I think Under the Mayo low-key is that, where he's like, well, if the easy mode is not, like, teaching you the game properly, then you fucked up, or whatever. And I'm like, okay, man, whatever. Crimson Desert has been praised for similar things, though that game, from what I played, just feels like 1,000 ideas thrown at the wall, so kind of not surprised why people are into it. This game lost me because it didn't give me an interesting stage for its tools, and the tools were insanely good. I think it still had some stuff, you know? I think Elden Ring summons are sort of hacky, where the way they make the game easier is by completely subverting the regular fight dynamics. That feels like an unsatisfying solution to me personally. Yeah, but again, it's unsatisfying, especially because, like you have to make that identification yourself, you know? It's still like a canonical part of the game. It's like, it's not distinguished in any special way. I don't know, and I guess maybe that is fair to call, like, a little lazy. It feels like this might be a generational divide. Gen Xers are more attached to grounded design. Gen Y is all about sandbox, and the alpha millennials, us, are stuck in between. Huh. That is interesting. I'm a late millennial. I'm a very young millennial. 1994. Okay. Rate nades. Is there much damage in conflating balance in terms of altering stats and hitboxes versus balance in terms of conceptual trade-offs and risk reward? Ooh, that's an interesting question. Is there much damage? My question would be, is that a conflation that people make? I mean, I think the two things are not in conflict with each other. What I would say is, like, well, the latter is how you get to the former. Or the former is the source for the latter, right? Like, if you're perceiving the game, you're thinking about a kind of big picture, right? You're thinking about, like, oh, the risk. I mean, I showed you my game earlier, on the stream, Gunpong. And conceptually, I would say, okay, well, it doesn't feel like the shotgun, the super powerful shotgun, has, like, the opportunity cost that I'm imagining, right? It doesn't feel like it's really fulfilling the risk-reward design that I had in mind, right? And then I would go in and do the specific tweaks, right? To, like, get the experience I want. Okay, the Fritos. How much allowance should we give games to patch a balance with scoring? Should we expect more from the survival experience from games? I think for that one, I have a very different take to, like, the arcade purists. Because I think it's totally fine, personally. I'm totally open to that. I mean, the scoring has to be, like, kind of interesting, you know? See, I see the logic of, like, prioritizing survival, right? I see the logic of that. Because it is a more genuine concrete wall, right? And it clarifies a lot of the design, right? Once you've made a game that's, like, actually hard to survive in, the player will fight tooth and nail, and it will reveal potential cracks, and then you can get rid of those, right? I guess it's a more honest form of design. It's a more clear form of design, and I see the logic of that. However, if you're treating that as like a dogma, then you wouldn't get games like Bayonetta, you know? You just wouldn't have them. And I'm like, I would rather have them. I would rather have more diversity. And I feel like Bayonetta's compromise is really strong, you know? So, like, I think going for the pure platinum and, like, not doing the cheesy exploits, it does elevate the game genuinely. So, let me read some of the comments. It's just that, I mean, what I'm noticing, like, in this bubble that we're in a little bit is, like, people used to tell, people still tell me, like, especially my German kind of bubble, they're like, oh my god, Ziad, your tastes are so narrow, your palate is so narrow, your focus is so narrow. It's like, bitch, have you talked to, like, Boghog or Blader? I feel like if all you want is, like, combat survival games where survival is hard, I mean, go at it, I guess, but, like, I feel like I feel like you can apply some different frameworks, you know? I feel like the medium is healthier with a little bit of diversity. And, like, that's the thing. What I'm advocating for is, like, just be interesting, right? And just, like, actually understand the medium that you're working in, you know? Don't just do random shit. I think my bar is, like, very low. And it's very flexible and it's very open-ended. And people, like, I think people who don't know me very well, they don't think that it is, but it is. I think that's fair. I think it's very fair. Can we blame players for calling certain action games and beating them as button mashers if they can complete them using easy dominant strategies? Yes, you can, in my opinion. And I think this goes back to what I was just saying, because, like, and it goes back to what I was saying with Minecraft, right? The Minecraft question, like, can Minecraft be considered imbalanced? Like, what a game like Minecraft might reveal is, like, oh, maybe the lens that you're using doesn't reveal what is interesting about the game, right? And to me, it's like, okay, if you're playing Bayonetta and or DMC4 or something, right? And you mash your way through it, and then you call it a button masher, are you really engaging with the things that are interesting and worth, like, learning about with this game, you know? Like, I think you can still, I understand the idea, like, okay, it's not meeting, like, your personal taste, or, like, you wish it was, like, more rigorous in certain ways. I can totally understand that. But I think if you're just using that approach, like, blanketly, a lot of shit will go over your head. And I think calling DMC4 or Bayonetta or whatever, calling them button mashers, you have to let a lot of stuff go over your head. That is really interesting and cool about those games, if you have that perspective on it, in my opinion. How do we address balance when it comes to non-gameplay options such as controller rebinding and macros, using keyboard and mouse on a PC port of a console FPS game? Certain accessibility options like visual indicators for footsteps, lowering graphic fidelity, and multiplayer games to spot opponents. Ooh, that's interesting. I mean, that conversation used to be really easy, because, I mean, usually games were made for one target platform, right? Especially, like, you had a really hard distinction between PC and console, right? That distinction now doesn't really exist as much anymore. I think with something like Resident Evil 4 original, it's, like, very clear, okay, this is a game based around controller aiming. Vanquish, based around controller aiming, was not on PC for fucking many, many years. Clearly, you're cheating a little bit if you're using other peripherals. And And like obviously there's the fucking silly Nerl argument that like, oh, using motion controls or a mouse in Resident Evil 4 is not cheating because you're just bringing in more of your body, right? You're playing to more of your ability. Okay, man, that's why in soccer I'm just gonna pick up the ball and run with it. Like, are you fucking stupid? I'm sorry. Oh my god. But like, yeah, if you look at modern Resident Evil games, it gets much more difficult. You could still, I guess, make the argument that the console version is the canonical version, and that like you should just use the controller. I think Armored Core, and something like Armored Core 6, it's very evident that like, okay, aiming faster just makes the game way easier. And that is something that's the thing, like. That's just an issue with game design in general today, because like I think the trend is like be as accommodating as possible and be as agnostic as possible, right? Like don't enforce an experience on the player. I think that is like really discouraged in today's day and age, and I find that kind of annoying and sad. Because it does muck up design, you know? It does make the design less clear. And then, I mean, the accessibility stuff is like... See, that's an interesting question of like, okay, how much should perceiving the information fast enough be part of the challenge? Because, like, I mean, that's rarely the most interesting aspect of games, right? I want to say. You get into really weird edge cases where, like, okay, you have some, like, Sifu where, the bosses will kind of use ambiguous animations, and it's a little hard to tell if you're supposed to dodge high or low, for example. And then the question is, does that make the game more interesting or not? Yeah. Would the game be less interesting if it was more clear? That's fucking insane. Boo this man. Boo this man. Boo, boo, boo. I think we're getting into very sort of finicky territory. I don't know if I have a clear answer to that, but like, I feel like overall the importance of that is like not that strong. That's what I want to say. Small addendum to what the Fritos said. I feel like especially the topic of save states in games where you can always save/load save scum seem to be contentious in terms of balancing and seem to tap into people's worst impulses of perfectionism. For example, how stealth games would probably be more fun if you had to actually live with your mistakes instead of being able to quick load. I agree with this last point, totally, to be honest with you, and, like, there's a Game Maker's Toolkit video of that I thought actually was pretty good, probably, I think, if I remember correctly. But I think the stealth example is a perfect example of, like, okay, by never engaging with, like, what happens once I mistake, you do flatten the game, and you're not experiencing all the other shit that the game might have to offer. And like, honestly, I would go a step further and say, like, I don't know how to feel about save states as, like, a practice tool. I guess it's like... I'm going off of what we just said with this, right? Getting all the information about the game. Usually not the most interesting part of it, right? Ideally, the game should get more interesting the more information I get about it. And then if the save states allow you to do that more efficiently, then I guess that's fine. Yeah. But something about that doesn't really sit right with me, yeah. I think the game designer in me is like, yeah, I would rather you experience it in like in a chronological order, yeah. And like, I mean, personally, I'm not someone who's ever practiced with save states. It doesn't feel natural to me. Even in Alien Soldier, I did not use the save states. I used the password system of the game. That was already built into the game. That feels more natural to me. Josh, what's up? Oh, you just posted this. Cool, okay. Oh yeah, and you mentioned you had the issue with Saros. Saros lets you adjust difficulty via modifiers that affect various factors like incoming/outgoing damage, gaining health back when fighting bosses, etc., and requires them to be balanced against negative modifiers. I like the concept, but also feel like it pushes me to make the decision about specific difficulty, which makes me feel like the developers are asking me to balance it. In doing so, it's hard to know how the game is balanced or what the developers expect. Some negative modifiers make the game more punishing upon death, e.g. losing permanent currency, but by using those to offset positive modifiers, they create an easier moment-to-moment experience. I feel like this trivializes the balance as you're more likely to survive and don't need the permanent progression system as much. With so many variables that can affect your performance beyond just skill, I feel like it must be kind of impossible for the devs to balance the game properly. Though it does assist in accessibility, which seems to be the core focus of Saros in response to Returnal. Do you think there's a way to balance stat-based systems that feels like a natural extension of a game's difficulty without it calling into question exactly what the expected difficulty curve is? And how can something be accessible but remain hard, and is there a way to do that in gameplay? Personally felt like Elden Ring kind of handled this well since the open world lends itself to exploration and leveling up, whereas Saros, which lets you teleport to the most recent biome that I have to imagine is bounced around higher stat builds, feels less precise with its overall difficulty curve. Excuse the no, this is all good. I did read it. Thank you for the long post. Well, my main thought on like stat shit is like, don't make it grindable. There needs to be mutual exclusivity, right? It needs to be like Resident Evil 4, where okay, there's a finite amount of enemies and there's a finite amount of gold in the game, and upgrades are mutually exclusive to some extent, right? I feel like if you're not doing, or the progression has to have a ceiling, right? And then it's like, well, even that is like a little difficult, right? If there's the edge cases like CAGs. Oops, I just flicked my hairband away. I think CAGs are like edge cases where, okay, the progression is sort of like an on-ramp tutorial, and I honestly, even that I'm not really a fan of. I feel like there's probably a better way to handle it. But the progression is just used as a glorified tutorial, and it's not used for routing, it's not used for choices, it's just a glorified tutorial, and the game expects you to eventually have all the stuff, and then constructs its hardest challenges around that, right? I think that's also fine. I think the endless grinding shit, that's bad. That's terrible. That's never good. It's never been good, ever. Like, at best, it's something you can, like, sort of ignore. Yeah. And the Saros stuff, it feels like the exact... it's the exact kind of issue that I have with Pragmata, where, like... it's like all this stuff that's, like, not distinguished or acknowledged by the game, the game is kind of indifferent toward. And, it's linearly making the game simpler or whatever. And I don't know, it doesn't sound like a good solution to me. Sasha, thank you for the Twitch bits or whatever. See, I'm not a fan of the, like, accessibility mode. Or, sorry, like, I shouldn't say accessibility mode. I'm not a fan of God mode turned on, story mode turned on, and then you just, like, blast through the game. And then, I mean, you have the Celeste situation where, like, in Celeste, if you turn on the system mode, they tell you, by the way, the game is not intended to be played this way, right? I find that very inelegant. I kind of like diegesis. I kind of like when everything is handled sort of seamlessly through the in-game kind of rules. It's weird, like, for example, I'm not that mad at, like, multiplayer in Souls, right? Multiplayer exists. I feel like that is such a... to me, that's one of the best solutions, actually, because, like, it's giving you a unique experience in exchange for, like, the difficulty, you know? I feel like that should be kind of the goal, you know? Sort of idealistically. Yeah, Hot Pocket, that's exactly it. Josh, let me read your posts. Sarah's lets you grind but prevents progress beyond specific bosses, so boss 1 has to be defeated before you can progress further on the skill tree. That's fine, I guess. That's fine. I guess there's a ceiling on the difficulty they expect, but it doesn't affect modifier unlocks or not by much, seemingly. Yeah. Do y'all see it? Thank you for joining in. Oh, okay, guys. I don't know if I have more text on top of this. If anybody wants to argue with me, the stream waiting room's still open. But I think Blader and Balcog are asleep, so... There's like nobody I can piss off with my takes. I think all my all y'all are just way too reasonable. Okay. Yeah. I haven't streamed for that long. I've been live for like 90 minutes, it says. This is a pretty short stream, I want to say, but I think I've said everything I want to say. That's fire. Do you have any thoughts about Harada creating a new studio with SNK? Honestly, very funny. Like leaving Bandai Namco, like your fighting game, your fighting game home to just take Saudi money. I thought he was retiring, yeah? Like, it's just... I mean, how old is he? I don't know. It's very weird, dude. The whole SNK thing is so weird. I don't know how to feel about it. The thing is, like... It is shitty that, like, SNK is funded on blood money. But also, would you rather SNK don't exist at all? Would you rather, like, are those people working at that company, are they bad people? I don't know. Young Orange stuff, what's up, man? If an exploit is off the boot path, it's more excusable. If opening a wiki for a game undermines the designer player vacuum, finding something game breaking at the player's risk. I don't think that should be that much of a factor. Because I guess what we're evaluating is not like the sort of the design guidance. We're evaluating like whether the design itself is like sloppy, right? And it's like, it's so arbitrary as well, right? Like, okay, I can say Infinite Drift and Crazy Taxi and like Killgore Glitch and Bayonetta. It's not intuitive. It's not something you're gonna figure out like on your own, probably. But like, it doesn't tell you anything about how much damage is experienced, right? So I think you should always evaluate it in context of the systems, and not of like the subjective. How do I reach this point? Speaking of SNK, did you comment at all on the Xbox situation? Oh, you meant that they fired this like one guy? I haven't commented on my English channels. I talked a little bit in the German sphere. I mean, it's good that they're divesting a little bit apparently from Israel, but also in that article that was posted, I think, it also said that they're looking to renew their contract with the IDF. So right now I'm like still in wait and see mode. I'm still in wait and see mode. I'm not gonna say, yeah, Microsoft is good again until like we actually have full clarification. Also, I think that is fair. Like, they still have the very old school kind of soul. Sasha, I also think that is like not a bad comparison, honestly. I mean, Patrick Miller, he wrote a post about it as well, and he was saying like, okay, the money that you're funneling into Saudi Arabia by buying like the new Fatal Fury, right? To the Saudi prince, that shit doesn't matter fucking at all, probably, right? Whereas to the person buying Fatal Fury that maybe waited for this game for like 20 years, 25 years, whatever, it matters a shit ton. And that like calculus is something you kind of have to like wrestle with, you know? And to be honest, I can't really begrudge somebody for like making those choices, really. Especially, I mean, again, with Microsoft, I have a slightly different perspective because like it is like an organized boycott, right? And still, even with Microsoft, I mean, I have fucking people in my private server that like are talking about Overwatch every day. I think they don't even realize it's not occurring to them that it's a Microsoft property now, right? It's so funny seeing the dissonance a little bit because like I feel like I know people who like they're always making anti-Microsoft statements, but then they forget that like one of their favorite games is also in that umbrella, right? And like I don't judge them. You know, I think I'm not gonna achieve anything with that. I feel like, well, you know what, you gotta do your own choices, you gotta make your own choices, you gotta sort of set your own boundaries. I can just move forward in the way that I think is the most appropriate. And like I feel like there's been enough instances where I feel like I've sent a signal by saying, nah, I'm not covering Microsoft stuff. I'm not doing it. Like that's already affected people in my orbit a little bit, and I am happy about that. I mean, I can say there's an editing gig that I have, video editing gig, and is video game based as well. And like we had one situation where like, okay, there would have been like Microsoft games in a video that was covering like multiple games, and I was like saying, hey, I can't agree to publishing this with those games in there. I voiced that complaint to like the person I'm doing the job for, and they said, "Bad, just cut the games, right? Just cut like." And they let me do whatever I wanted with it, right? They let me cut the games and then add a disclaimer and then add like URLs to like support Lebanon, support Gaza. And I'm like, I could have just said nothing, right? I could have just been comfortable and not risk the relationship and not like risk making things awkward. But no, I said something, and I think I achieved something better with that, right? And I feel like just way too many people are way too afraid of doing literally anything, yeah? Of like getting even slightly uncomfortable, yeah? And that really bothers me. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, in my personal life, I don't really go fuck. I tell people that, like, yeah. Well, how explicit I get? Dude. Let's just say, I've said some crazy things with Israel, like, when the cameras were off. Let's put it that way. Like, if somebody pressed me right now, like, hey, do you support Israel's right to exist? I would give them some lip, you know? I would, like, I would make their life difficult, you know? I would be difficult about it. Like, I mean, and like, for those who don't know, in Germany, that situation right now is, like, very, very fraught with danger. They're trying to like literally make it illegal to deny Israel's right to exist. And yeah, God. So obviously you're moving on thin ice a little bit, but like I'm not gonna compromise my principles, right? I would give the classic line of like, okay, what can you make your question a little more precise, right? What does right to exist, what does that even mean? Does any nation have the right to exist? I would say shit like, I would ask them, okay, do I believe that Israeli citizens should be expelled or that any harm should come to them? No, I don't believe that. Do I believe that Palestinians should have a right to vote and that it should be equal like democracy where Muslims are not discriminated against, where Muslims have the same rights as everybody else? Yes, I do. Yeah. That's what I would tell them. That's fair to Fritos. I mean, that's why. I mean, I do my best to like educate other people. So. Oh yeah. No, that is true. That is true. Dude, it's so funny. I know so many people in my friend group who don't have like, who've lived in Germany their whole lives, and like, I recently learned they don't have a German citizenship for like one reason or another. So far. Okay, those were like some pleasant topics to end the stream with. Yeah, man. I want to do like a full playthrough Saturday at some point where we play Resident Evil 4. Because I need to play it for like a thing. Then I feel like it would be a good way to boost my channel a little bit, to get some more shareholders. I keep saying it, at 100 shareholders, I will do Devil May Cry 3 Down to Must Die difficulty. And like maybe I can do a big run where like, okay, I will collect shareholders with a big RE4 playthrough. Oh yeah, that is Sasha. That is a very big, important element for me, of course. Like I mean, even with the people of Gaza, like obviously on a human level, you just have to care about it, right? Like it's just fucked up. But obviously, it's fucking around the corner, from where my family's from, right? So with the people of Gaza, I always felt like a certain closeness. But now that it's affecting Lebanon as well, very specifically, it's like, God. It is southern Lebanon. It's not... The thing is, it's not as... like, precarious of a situation for the average Lebanese person as, like, for example, that pager attack, like, a year or so ago. Because, like, I can distinctly tell you, yeah, my aunt, who lives in Lebanon with her children, they couldn't go to school for, like, a week or two, because, like, all the schools were closed, it was considered too dangerous, and she actually came to Germany to, like, stay here with my family for a little bit, because they didn't feel safe, when that happened. Right now, that's not the case. Right now, it's... I mean, overall, it is much worse, right? It is much more serious attacks. But, like, it's not in the specific area that most people live in, so it's... I don't know, dude. God. I think I have it on Steam, dude. I think I have it. So, maybe I should fuck around with that. I think I bought it for that specific reason. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm gonna wind down. I'll be back on Monday. I haven't picked our game for Monday yet. Our potential man game. I'll try to report back on stuff. I don't know. It's a little too soon. I have a lot of other shit I need to do, so I don't know if I can dedicate time to stuff like that right now. Absolutely fucking not, Josh. Absolutely fucking not. Okay, y'all. Mixtape for Ketsui. Oh yeah, I gotta do fucking Ketsui. Yeah. I'll probably do Ketsui. I have it on PS5. Mixtape I'm gonna play on my own. I just got it. I got a donation to like play it, so I'm gonna do it for like other content, for like German content. So yeah, y'all have a great rest of your week. Take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, stay safe, stay healthy. Oh heck yeah, Ziggy, what's up, man? Thank you for the tip again, by the way. That shit worked brilliantly on the emulator. I might play it that way too. I mean, I have a Wii U. And like, I mean, I think you saw the issue, right? Like when I was playing from my desk, the setup just was not working. The stream, the gamepad, Bluetooth, whatever, was like just giving me heartache. And when I sit on the couch, which is like literally not that much closer to the Wii U, it's completely fine. So I don't know what's up with that. However, even then, the frame rate is pretty bad on the Wii U. So that is a reason to play an emulator. On the fucking Mac, it plays really good. I'm like kind of shocked. Yeah, pretty sick. Okay, I'm sorry, Ziggy, but like I'm ending the stream now. So yeah, maybe catch the VOD if you want. I think we had a good discussion. Okay. Bye bye y'all. Bye bye. Bye bye. I'm leaving. I'm fucking